Hello and welcome to Murder with Friends, the show where two friends get together and talk about the dark sides of history. I'm your host, Grace Baldridge, and joining me today is my friend. I'm so happy that you're here. Meredith Placko, welcome for your first time to the Murder with Friends studio.
Thank you so much for having me,
We've been talking about doing this for some time.
I feel like almost like 6 to 7 months at this
Probably, and it's because I sort of accosted you and you dropped a little bit of a fact about yourself because you have personal knowledge and experience with the case that we're gonna be talking about today, which is the case of Caylee Anthony, the murder of 2-year-old Caylee Anthony. So can you just explain to the viewers what is your experience with this case?
Yeah, so I actually started working on this around 2008. I was a journalist living in Mobile, Alabama. And obviously we had kind of covered a little bit of when there was this missing persons case. Well, a couple months after like into June, I moved. I left Mobile, Alabama, left the station I was working at there to work freelance for a third-party satellite production company where we handled a lot of the live shots with George and Cindy Anthony, the grandparents of Caylee, Jose Baez, Leonard Padilla, who was one of the bounty hunters at the time, and various other players in this case. So I worked personally with a lot of these individuals as they went on and did various talking head spots for CNN and Fox News.
Yeah, so you really had sort of a front row seat to what would become one of the most publicized murder trials in recent memory. I would say easily of the 21st century. It's an American crime mystery, and if you don't know what we're talking about today, let's just toss to a clip to sum things up.
With regret, I'm here to inform you that the skeletal remains found on December 11th are those of the missing toddler, Caylee Anthony. The manner of death in this case is homicide.
It's the story that transfixed the nation. An adorable 2-year-old girl dead.
This is a child that was just dumped in the woods like a piece of trash.
A young, hard-partying mother accused of being the killer.
Casey, where is Caylee's body?
And a verdict that stuns millions.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
So this is something we're gonna be touching on. Almost every single documentary that you're gonna find out there on Caylee Anthony, whether it be on YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, whatever, it all is very dramatic. The coverage for this, the media circus around this case was insane. Why do you think it got the wall-to-wall coverage that it did?
I mean, there's a couple, I can give you 3 names. Nancy Grace, Geraldo Rivera, and Greta Van Susteren. Especially when Nancy Grace took hold of this story, she attacked it with such veracity. Yeah. She, came out and she started calling Caylee Anthony the top mom, giving her monikers, and in many ways already, casting guilt on this mother of a missing child before we really knew anything about it. And through all that, I hate to say this, I talk about this in very stark newsroom terms. You have a gorgeous young toddler who's missing. She's absolutely beautiful. You have an attractive mother with a weird story that, as we will talk about, unfolds of lie and lies here and lies there, and everything about her is just unfathomable what comes out of her mouth. And then you have these 2 doting grandparents, for all intents and purposes, were also helped raise Caylee, and it had all the elements to just really get the nation captivated. But without coverage like from Nancy Grace, I don't think it would have turned into the circus that it did.
Yeah, so with that said, I think that's a good point to sort of kick off how we're gonna be telling the story today, because I don't wanna really sensationalize this, but there are some bizarre elements of this case that I do wanna talk about. So let's just pick up with the players in this case. You talked a little bit about how they were this beautiful all-American family. Now, obviously, what they were putting out there was a little bit more going on behind the scenes. So let's pick up with them, the Caylee Anthony, the Anthony family in June of 2008. Let's start off with Caylee Anthony.
Yeah.
Who are they in this time in their life?
So Caylee Anthony is this very, adorable 2-year-old, almost 3, honestly, toddler who, had been born to a young mother and, was like, I love, there's this audio clip of one of Casey's friends where she says, the little girl when the first time they met her, she came in with big sunglasses and was like, "What's up, dudes?" She's very vivacious, just a very loving, bright child from what we heard of her, because none of us really could get to know her.
Right, and then what do we know of her dynamic in 2008 with her mother, Caylee Anthony?
I mean, we know that she spends a lot of time with Casey, spends a lot of time with the grandparents. Cindy Anthony, the grandmother, almost raises her almost as much as the daughter, the mother of Caylee does. She, is just goes around, like we know she had gone to visit Cindy's father, so her maternal great-grandfather, the day before she, last time we saw her alive.
Right.
She just kind of has this very normal life.
And now Cindy and George Anthony, also major players in this case, because Casey basically lived at home with her parents. And what is this family dynamic here?
Well, so at first you think it's the all-American family. You have George, a retired cop, Cindy is a registered nurse, very, prominent people in Orlando. Not prominent.
They're well respected.
Well respected.
They're part of a community. They have friends.
And you hear on the outside, you think cop and nurse, like, oh, these are very good people. And they also have a son, Lee Anthony, and they took a lot of responsibility in raising Caylee. Casey was 19 when she was pregnant and had Caylee, and a young mother without a huge education, the grandparents stepped in and decided we're going to raise this kid alongside our daughter.
Right. So now we are June 16th, 2008 is the last confirmed sighting of Caylee Anthony. And this is a weird time in the family's life because Casey has moved out of her family's place because of some sort of family drama.
So we come to find out that Casey and her mother, Cindy, fight a lot.
We made the analogy before we were taping. It kind of reminds us of a dynamic that you would see on a Teen Mom on that MTV show, where it seems like they're literally at each other's throats. Before Casey moved out, there was one account that said that Cindy Anthony was choking Casey Anthony. Now, of course, as we'll see in later dates, Cindy Anthony vehemently denies pretty much everything that was ever recorded.
But there are also other accounts where Cindy refers to Caylee as my daughter. Cindy, Cindy gives interviews where she's like, oh, Casey and I were extremely close. We, had this, we love shopping and all this together. But, there's something there that just like, even when I met them, you see Cindy and she's a woman who's more aware of what's going on than she lets on. I always felt, whenever I met George was very warm. I felt him to be very genuine. I felt him extremely concerned. He was an older middle-aged gentleman. He had his sternness about him, I think also from working in law enforcement. But Cindy just came across as just, I wish I could have had I would have loved to have gone to lunch with her. I really
feel
like,
figure out what's going on.
Yeah, because I think there's a certain point that I feel that she knew more of what was going on. Because we see a shift.
Well, and so when Caylee's last confirmed scene, there's about a month of not totally unaccounted for time, but there's a month of time where Casey Anthony is on her own and where the grandparents, Cindy and George, have no contact with Caylee Anthony. They do speak with Casey over the phone, and Casey is going from friend's house to boyfriend's house, all this stuff, but they haven't spoken with Caylee. So break down exactly what's going on during this month-long time before Caylee is finally reported missing.
So we have Casey leaves and she takes Caylee and she spends the night at an ex-boyfriend's house. And then she eventually kind of moves in with her current boyfriend at the time, a gentleman by the name of Tony Lazzaro. And Tony and his friends, who also live, he had several roommates and then friends that would frequent, say, oh, we remember seeing Caylee a couple of times. And then suddenly Caylee wouldn't come over anymore. And Casey would, say, oh, she's with the nanny, she's with my parents, making up all these excuses. All the while Casey and Tony kind of worked as a club promoter downtown, and Casey was a frequent, club goer. Yeah, there's this one club called Fusion Nightclub where a lot of like the young college party kids,
It sounds like a place that young party kids would go.
Yeah, I mean, it totally was. Yeah, I mean, it was across the street from my favorite bar, which was like the Independent, which was all like rock and industrial. But so you see a lot of Casey going out clubbing, going out shopping, spending money, and not so much any interaction with the daughter.
Right.
And it kind of, we find out obviously after the fact that Casey is participating in hot body contests where it's kind of like, oh, we're gonna dance and show off who has the hottest body. Shopping, which then we later find out was with her friend Amy Huizinga's checks that she had stolen, and just generally like living life, but also staying away from the family.
Staying away from the family until she can't avoid it anymore, because on July 15th, 2008, Caylee is reported missing, and this is because Pontiac Sunfire.
Yeah, the car that her parents
impounded.
Yeah, so Cindy and George gave Caylee an old car of theirs, a white Pontiac Sunfire, and it was left at an Scott, which is a check cashing store, parking lot for 4 days. So that car was impounded after sitting in the parking lot, supposedly because it ran out of gas. So the Anthonys get a notice in the mail saying that, hey, this car is in the impound lot, come do something with it, because it was still registered with them.
And Cindy is furious about this.
She is not happy in the least. She gets a hold of Caylee. She basically, if I remember correctly, I think she goes to Tony's.
Yeah, she calls
the
a bunch
boyfriend.
Of Caylee's friends, her boyfriend. She said, "Where is Caylee?" This is now the first time where she's like, my daughter isn't out spreading her wings on her own. She's getting into some trouble. Our car has just been impounded. I want to know what the hell is going on. So she really goes after Caylee, and she demands to find out where she is. She goes through Tony. She does get a hold of Caylee, and then there are 3 911 calls that are placed on that day, and you can find them on YouTube. I would urge you to listen to them in full. They're really chilling, because the first call is just reporting a grand theft auto,
but also saying, come over and arrest my daughter.
Yes.
Like Cindy is very like distinct about, like, my daughter did this, come take her away.
Yeah.
And then within an hour, what unfolds is Caylee tells her brother Lee, and Cindy overhears this, that Caylee's been missing, and Caylee's been missing for a month. And Cindy loses it. She absolutely flips her shit and questions Caylee, where's Caylee? Where's Caylee? Where's Caylee? She makes another phone call and says, my granddaughter's missing. Oh, and then she brings up how the car smells like a dead body.
Yeah, that's on the 3rd 911 call. So she calls first, arrest my daughter for grand theft auto, and you just see law enforcement sort of patching her over to the right department that she needs to speak with. And then the second one is, my granddaughter's been missing. And then the third one is, we just got this car. It smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. And that's the audio clip that you will hear over and over again at trial. It would go in to become a key piece of evidence against Caylee Anthony for the murder of her daughter, Caylee Anthony. And in part 2, we're going to detail more about the evidence in the trial and the case against Caylee Anthony.